Hi, well, we're here making some sugar syrup for the bees. I use granulated sugar. Some people can use fructose. What I've got here is a mixture of sugar syrup, and I've made already 3 gallons in this bucket to feed my 6 hives. And then I'll make another gallon right here to feed a small nuke. I caught a small swarm. It's unlikely that it'll survive the winter. I might need to combine it, but I figured I'd go ahead and give it a whirl and see how well, by taking care of them now, we could feed them and see if they'd make it through the winter. So I'm going to mix a 50-50 of sugar and water. Some people mix it 2/3 sugar and water, but I think right now we've had the hottest summer on record here in Texas, so making it 50-50, they get a little more water and it might be easier for them to process. Just mix it up and just keep stirring until it's all dissolved in. You want to make sure it's dissolved in order for the bees to digest it, number one, and number two, it doesn't clog up your jar or your feeder when you give it to them. In the fall, as the bees hibernate, you like to keep them as healthy as possible. This in particular is called Honeybee Healthy, and they want you to mix it, or they suggest you serve it to the bees in the sugar water. I'm just taking a little bit and putting it in here, and basically this just helps their digestive system, and it supposedly adds minerals and supplements. It's not as good as what they have out in the wild, but when they don't have anything in the wild, you got to do something to supplement it. The other thing we've got here is some pollen patty. This paste that I've made up, it was from powder, and the powder is basically protein. Pollen is protein for the bees. And they need this to eat and to survive as nutrition. They need both sugar and the pollen. So I made this up, and I put a little of that yellow substance, that Mega Bee pollens, that Mega Bee Health in here, along with sugar syrup and powder, mixed it up. And then we'll take it and we'll smooth it on the hive, and we'll show you that later. Well, today we're going to take a look at what we can do to prepare the hives for winter, but also with an eye on doing splits in the spring. So what we're going to do here is we're going to inspect the hives, we're going to feed the hives, and then we're going to figure out what the best mix of hives should be, because this is really the beginning of the season in some sense for preparing for next year. And so with strong hives and healthy hives going into the winter so they can survive the winter, and then with enough preparation come winter and then early spring, we'll get these hives strong enough to where we can split them, add new queens, and we'll be off and roaring for next season. So we're getting the wood ready for the smoker, and what you want to do is get enough wood to where it'll burn and get down to some coals, as well as where you can put some new wood on top. I've found that using a smoker with the bees, it just calms them down. I want to just make sure that I do everything I can to reduce the amount of bee traffic around my bonnet and feet so I don't get stung. First, I'm taking out what's called the inboard feeder. This holds a gallon of syrup, and I'm hoping you can see all the dead bees in the bottom. And all those dead bees, all those bees crawled in there, and these rib sides don't really work as well as advertised, and I end up with a lot of dead bees in there. So I'm going to clean this out, and I'm going to go ahead and put that screen in there and see if I can't help them out a little bit. This is pretty simple stuff. I'm just trying to cut a pattern that'll fit inside of this container. Like I said, I'm just trying to give the bees a chance to climb out of there and not have to drown in their own syrup. And they're going to be able to land on this and go all the way down into it, all the way to the bottom, and they'll be able to climb back out more easily than what we had. And before I put it in, you know what? Let's take a look at how much work they've done so far. I've been feeding them, and remember, this is a brand new hive. And this frame, this is how I know the queen is active and doing a good job, because you can see that she's planted eggs here, and these lightly colored surfaces are where the eggs are, and they're growing into bees right now. So this is the brood. Over here you can see pollen in these yellow cells, and then honey around it. And what the bees do is they mix the pollen with the honey. It's called bread. And what I just learned recently is they'll feed a larva, once the egg's planted by the queen, they'll feed the larva 1,000 times a day or more. I think it might even be something like 1,500 times a day. It's just incredible. And here's a bee with pollen sacs. It's probably from sunflowers. Those are the most predominant thing that grew in this tough heat and weather. So now I'm adding about a gallon of sugar syrup that's got the Honeybee Healthy from Dayton I threw in there, and now I've got this screen here, and my hope is that the bees, there not so many, will die. This is a very young hive, and the likelihood of it surviving the winter is very low, but I decided to give it a shot and feed them as much as I could and see what happened. So there we have it. Now when they're active and it's warm and you've got a fairly strong hive, they'll go through a gallon of syrup in a day. I've had them go through half gallons in a few hours, where I've dropped the feeder down and I came back a few hours later and it was empty. So there's times where they just take it down like crazy. This is a smaller hive, so I don't think they'll go through it as fast. Might last a few days. Now I'm going to add some pollen, and what I'm going to do is, normally you put it on top of the they tell you to put it on top of these frames, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it between, because what I found is in this nuke it tends to raise the top of the cover, and again I'm just trying to give them every chance possible to survive. Come on, get off of there. I found these plastic jars online. In looking at it, it doesn't look like it, but these hold a half gallon of liquid. And I didn't believe it until I used them, and I realized what a good deal they were. So the reason I'm out here today is to inspect the hives, and what I'm really doing is I'm preparing for next spring. And if you take a look at these hives, what you see is I have a deep, and the deep is always the base for where the queen and the brood are supposed to be. And what I've got is another what's called a deep super on here. And my point is I'm trying to grow this hive as strong as possible so that in the spring I'll be able to separate and split this hive in half, and I'll have two deeps, and I'll get a new queen for half of it. They'll accept her and she'll get up and on her way, and I'll have two strong hives going into the spring. And as you can see, it's very strong, and I can tell by looking down, I can see how much wax they've pulled out. I can see there's a lot of bees working, a lot of bees on the cover board. They're just doing a good job, bottom line. So when I inspect the hive, what I'm expecting to see is honey being formed and built on the outside, and as we get to the middle, I want to see brood. I want to see eggs, and I want to see bees in progress, new bees being born and fed. So as we get to the middle, we should see more brood and more eggs. And the reason they start putting them in the middle and they like to ball them up is as it gets cold, the bees come around the brood and keep it warm, so that way it doesn't die, and then they have future bees ready, and that's how they survive through the winter. So as we pull these out, so as I pull this out, yeah, see, so on this side you can see it's honey they're building up, and that's what was in these prior frames. But on this side you can see that there's brood, and the queen's been laying eggs. There's a larva, you can see larva that's in there that they're feeding, and they'll feed it, as I said before, I think something around 1,400 times a day. And then when it gets big enough in its time, they cap it. And so this hive's well on the way to producing a whole nother crop of bees, which is a really good sign. I mean, for a beekeeper, this is exciting. So this next one, we should see a lot of brood on this one if things are going well. Oh yeah, look at all the bees working. And everything in here, in this big circle, is all bees about to hatch out here in a little bit. This means there's going to be all these extra bees that are going to grow and come out here in the fall. And that's going to carry the hive into the winter. And it's going to help them stay warm. It's going to help maintain the hive and protect it. And in the spring, I should have a really good shot at splitting this hive. That's just a really exciting shot. Look, you can see the pollen. They're getting pollen and bringing it in. And I'm looking around for the queen. I don't see her. But man, that's just an exciting shot. Let me show you something. See, you can see all the brood and how they're taking care of it. You can see where she's planted eggs, and if they're standing straight up vertical, it's the first day she's laid it, and if they're laying down, it's within a couple of days. And then they'll feed that larva, that egg, they'll feed it until it becomes larva, and when it becomes a full larva, that's when they cap the the cell, and then it grows into a mature bee. But this is just really exciting to see her working so hard and the whole hive after it. So you can see some of these bees are head first down into these cells where the eggs are, and basically what they're doing is they've gone in and they're feeding those eggs. They're making one of those, 1,300 trips to feed the egg. And basically the queen goes in, lays her egg, and she goes to the next cell, and then these worker bees, which are the female bees, go in and they feed the eggs and care for them until they need to be capped and grow into a mature bee. So here's the queen right here. See her with the long abdomen, and she's right off my finger there, and she's just doing a good job. Good job, young lady. Right there, and you can tell she looks like a regular bee except for the long abdomen. Okay, so what we've done here today is we've gone through the hives. We fed them additional syrup with some healthy nutrients. We've given them some pollen patty material. And basically what I'm looking for is to see how strong the hives are. Because going into the winter, I want to see a lot more brood being made on several of these hives. Some of them look great, and I want to see a lot more food. But the good news is they've got plenty of honeycomb. They're good, strong hives, and I'm going to just make sure that they're going to get plenty of sugar water over the next few weeks while it's still warm and they can process it, and we should be good to go for the winter.